do that. Okay. So tonight, basically what I want to do with you, and this is a little bit repetitive for some of you that listen to me through EDL 700, so if you want to go grab a snack or something, you can do that right now because you're not going to miss anything new. Tonight I wanted to introduce you to the course and give you sort of a big overview of what it is we're going to be doing. Oh, hi, Lindsay. I see your message. Good to have you back. What we're going to do in the course, what my expectations are for course success, how to get along with your instructor, which I hope is not too hard, and then give you just a little bit of information.
Victoria, can you mute?
Forward. Yeah, sorry, I see that somebody had their mic on. I think I took care of it. Is that better, guys? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. So let's start off with what is the purpose of this course? Well, you know, data is a four-letter word, and a four-letter word in many ways, because a lot of people hear the word data and they cringe, because the first thing they think of is math, statistics, informatics, all of those things that most people in education aren't very fond of. But my goal and my hope is to make you very comfortable with data, and most importantly, how to use it effectively. You know, data is a critical part of the work that we do in schools. You know, unfortunately, accountability has forced us into the data mode, but we can also really use that data very proactively to improve what's happening on a day-to-day basis in the classroom. And the real power of data is when you use it for individual students and individual classrooms. You know, one of the things that I think has been difficult for a lot of people, sorry, I'm looking at my phone too. Sorry, because sometimes students will be like, I can't get in. Okay, yeah, they're in now, we're good. So anyway, one of the things that data is really essential for is improving student outcomes. Now, we're not talking about just students who are not performing well, but also our gifted and talented students. They're oftentimes sort of left out of the picture when it comes to data analysis and data usage. So without, I kind of lost my train of thought. Sorry, I shouldn't have looked at my phone. That'll always undo me. So tonight we're going to talk about those parameters for data and why it's important. The other thing I'm going to focus on throughout the course is data modeling. Okay, now that probably sounds a little bit intimidating, but quite frankly, when you have a system in place that helps you to manage your data, it makes it more comfortable, it makes it more palatable, and it certainly makes it more useful. Now, if you're in a school system like I came from, or a school parish, we were given way more data than we could ever use. I mean, it was truly overwhelming. I mean, I remember one year, I just decided to put every data report I had in notebooks. And I'm not kidding you, there were like 10 notebooks, they're all this thick, and there was no way to make sense of that. So I knew at that point that we were overwhelmed with data. If I was feeling overwhelmed, and you know, I'm pretty comfortable with data as a whole, I could only imagine how the teachers felt. So part of what we're going to talk about is how to make sense of data, what's important data, what data you can ignore and discard, and then what do you do with all of that data to make it not only useful, but to make it something that you really can have an impact at the teacher-student level, and that's where it really matters. The other thing in terms of the class that I want you to be able to do as well is to walk away with a set of tools. So tools, templates, processes, whatever, that you can actually pick up and take to your school tomorrow or in August or September and begin to put into place. So when all of that data comes back from the state, you know what to do with it. Now I will tell you right now, I'm not a huge fan of using state test data. It's historical by the time you get it, in that it's already happened. You don't even have those students anymore, so you can't really make an impact based on that data. So what does it mean? Because I've seen principals, and I was guilty at one time in my life too, of sitting and going through that state level data during the first or second day teachers are back, before the school year starts, ad nauseum. And I realized all I was doing was boring them out of their skulls and spending a whole lot of time putting together pretty charts and graphs that were absolutely not helpful to us. So state data, Great for celebrations, great for some reflection, but other than that, move on. And we'll talk more about that and what that really means. The other thing that I want you to walk away from here with is not only the understanding of the data and how to use it, how to apply it, how to make formative assessment really palatable and useful, but to use and create data systems that get everybody involved with data. There's a real problem in schools when the only person who really knows their data is the principal or the assistant principal or the team leader. Data should be owned by the people closest to the source of the data. So if I'm a first grade teacher or I'm an algebra teacher, I need to know the data about my students in my class today because that's going to inform my instruction. But when we keep data at this very cursory sort of global level, we are really missing the boat in terms of using data to enhance instruction and success for our kids. So those are the big sort of overarching goals for the course. And hopefully, and if I don't meet those, you just tell me so we can always regroup. But hopefully moving forward, that's what you're going to gain by the time we end this course. Kind of make sense? Okay, so the other thing that people always want to know is what is it like to work with a particular instructor? So many of you have had me before. Those of you that heard this in the EDL 700, if I forget to say something I said there, just go ahead and tell me. I'll tell you, it brings back those memories for me of when I was a high school English teacher. I hated it when they gave me the same prep more than once because I could never remember what I said in the first class that I didn't say in the second and vice versa. I always wanted different preps. And I kind of feel that way tonight because I'm reiterating something. But hopefully you will find me a pretty easygoing instructor, someone not too rigid. Not that I'm talking badly about some of the other professors in the program, but I've walked in your shoes. I am not so far removed from schools that I don't remember what it's like. I also know that we're coming up on the time of year when you're getting ready to open school and have those first days, and I know how stressful that is, how busy you are. So like I said, I get it. So I try to be very flexible and pretty forgiving about things, just because, like I said, I've walked in your shoes. Now, I do have a few pet peeves. Number one, the only people in the entire universe who know me as Tracy Fraley Johnson is the LSU system. I worked really hard in my life to get rid of that last name, Fraley. I am legally Tracy Johnson, according to the U.S. government and everybody else except LSU. So please feel free to call me Tracy. I am not a doctor. If you just can't do that, then call me Miss Johnson, but I really prefer you call me Tracy. And I won't take off any points if you accidentally address me as Fraley, but I would just prefer you didn't, because like I said, I worked really hard to get rid of that last name. The other thing too is I have a double major from my undergraduate work in special ed and English, so I expect you to write as you would professionally. I do take off for grammar and usage and all of those things as well as content because I just can't help myself. But at the same time, this is graduate school. So, we're not writing chats or instant messages or, text or anything. This is professional level writing, so please plan accordingly. And I'll talk more about some of the tools that you can use if that's uncomfortable for you. But like I said, we do expect that. Also, I will give you a whole bunch of tools and stuff that you can use to kind of stay on top of the course. So please use them. I mean, I don't mind you asking me questions, but that's why we have the instructor virtual office because, one person will ask a question and 10 other people maybe had the same question and it's been answered in that instructor virtual office. It's also fine if somebody posts something and, it takes me a day or two to respond. You guys are more than welcome to chime in and respond because I've seen you guys do that already, so that's great. The other just sort of wrinkle to know is if you're looking around at the background, I'm sitting in my absolutely lovely circa 1982 office at LSUS with the ugly wood paneling. In fact, when I moved into this office Monday, I'm pretty sure they hadn't dusted it since 1982. It was disgustingly bad. But we are undergoing a ton of renovations here at LSUS. And so I think this is I've lost count. I've moved like 10 times. And I was in one temporary office for 2 weeks. I don't know how long I'll be here. I may be here 2 to 3 months, I may have to move again tomorrow. So if I kind of go blank and you don't hear from me, it's because I'm in that transition mode of physically moving offices. I've gotten really adept at rehooking up all of my technology equipment so I don't have to wait on IT anymore. But the only thing I don't have, and I still don't have, is a phone. So, you know, if you need me, email's usually going to be best. Plus, you have my cell phone. Just text me because I am a perpetual teenager and I don't listen to voicemails, so you're wasting your time. But if you'll text me, you know, and even if it's hey Tracy, this is Laura. Will you give me a call? Here's my number. I will call you back. Okay, but those are probably the best ways to get hold of me. Other things too, just to kind of know. Zoom meetings, I appreciate you guys being here live. You know, we've got 35 out of 50 people, which is amazing. But if for some reason you can't be in the Zoom meeting, I do record them. And I will post the recording. I generally do it right after the meeting ends. So I usually post them tonight. I'll put it in Moodle in this week's module. It'll say Zoom recording. I will also send it out as an announcement. So you're going to get it one way or the other. So like I said, you are not responsible for being live, but you are responsible for the content. So I'm trying to mute one of you. Hey, Brandy, can you mute your microphone?
Sorry.
That's okay. You're muted now. Thanks. So anyway, please do make sure you watch that because, you know, lots of times we're going to go over next week assignments, you know, and it just avoids a lot of questions if you'll do that. We've talked about the virtual office. If you have to turn in an assignment late, there is that policy in our syllabus, but I'm pretty forgiving about that. Just let me know, communicate with me what's going on. Because I know life happens. You know, it is summer, people are going on vacation. You know, we've got a hurricane possibly going to be hitting South Louisiana. Lots of things can happen. So if you're going to be late with an assignment, I will give you an extension. Don't worry about it. My only caution to you is that the course will begin to accelerate in terms of the assignments and stuff the further we get into it. So you've got it pretty light this week. This is your week to just kind of explore Moodle, get up to speed, get to know each other a little bit. And then in the second week, we do just a little bit more. But then by the third week, you're going to get a case study, and then you're going to get a midterm. And the next thing you know, it's going to be a final exam. And unfortunately, if you wait till that last week to try to do all that, you're probably going to be really overwhelmed. So try to stay on top of it as best you can, just so that you don't get in that cycle of, oh my gosh, you know. Same thing's true. A lot of students, and I get it, you know, as a teacher, you may wait until Sunday to do your assignments. And I can't tell you how many times I get the panicked email, you know, at 11 o'clock, and I'm probably still not even awake, on Sunday night because you can't get your assignment to load. So please take time, at least early in the week, to kind of look ahead so you know what you've got coming. So you're not sitting there Sunday in pure panic mode and upset with me that I'm not responding because, like I said, I'm asleep, I'm at church, I'm with my family. Sunday's kind of the day that I really don't do work. I do work 6 days a week, but that's kind of my day. There are no textbooks required. A lot of people seem to be a little bit confused because I talk about them. What I said when I say, like in the video, that, you know, from our textbooks, I take excerpts from probably 15 or 20 different textbooks. So, you know, you would have to go buy 15 or 20 books if you wanted them. But if you want to have something that you want to add to your professional library, that I would highly recommend, because you will use this literally for the rest of your career, it's the Data Wise book. It's put out by Harvard Press. I love it because it's like, step one, do this. Step two, do that. So if you're in a school situation where you're really struggling with data, it's a great guidebook for moving forward, but it is not required for this class. And if you do decide to get it, go on Amazon, look at their used ones. I got my copy for $4, free shipping. So, you know, like I said, again, not required. You won't hurt you or help you in the class, but it's just a good resource as you build a professional library. I think that was really kind of it. Are you guys okay in Moodle? Is there anything I need to show you in Moodle? Are you feeling pretty comfortable? It's really, you can't break it, can't mess it up. If you're new to it, it's pretty intuitive. But I'm happy to walk you guys through if we need to. If not, I'm going to not do that.
Tracy, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, DeMarcus.
What's the earliest that you make your assignments available to work on?
I'm going to tell you the latest, and then I'll talk to you about the earliest, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I usually try to have everything posted for you no later than the Thursday before the week starts on Monday. So like Module 2, Week 2, I opened today. I will try to get everything open pretty quickly, except like the last week or so of class. But it just kind of depends on what's going on. And like I said, having moved offices, it just really threw me off because normally I would have had at least the first 2 weeks open on Monday, but I just couldn't this time because I had to do some updates. But worst case scenario, the Thursday before the week starts, sooner if possible. So I hope to have Module 3 open for you guys by the end of this week if possible. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? Okay, y'all are making my life really easy. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to do a share screen with you guys so we can look at some stuff. So every, why is this not looking right? That is weird. I don't know why it's looking so funky, but whatever. Okay, so one of the things that I will try to do is I always send out a reminder the day of a Zoom meeting so that, you guys know what's coming and all those kind of things. I also will put the presentation up for you in that same announcement, and then I do go ahead and add it into the Zoom meeting folder in Moodle for that week. So like, for example, if you go to week 1, module 1, to the Zoom link in the actual course, you will see this added there. So that way you get it. And like I said, as soon as we're done tonight and I upload my video and everything, I will get that to you. So you guys will have this pretty quickly. But let's talk a little bit about the course and where we're headed. So I was going to have everybody introduce themselves, but when you have 35, 36 participants, that will take us a lot longer. So please take time to go in and read discussion forum postings so you kind of get to know your colleagues. And for those people that have their video on, it's nice to be able to start putting names and faces together. I've been kind of amazed how many of my students over time create their own little like study groups or networking groups or whatever, and really they rely on each other. So it's kind of cool that we're able to do this virtually as opposed to what would naturally happen in a classroom. Good to see you. How are you, Victoria? Okay, so we're going to skip that, and maybe we'll get to do that. But one of the things I want you to do is I want you to rate your data analysis and usage knowledge. So we're going to do this on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can see all of you. And you're going to just hold up your fingers. So if you feel like I know absolutely nothing about data, the thought of it terrifies me, that would be a 1. If you're like an expert and you got something new you can teach me and the rest of the class, you're a 10. So with show of fingers, tell me where you are on that 1 to 10 scale with your data. Okay. Okay. Okay, awesome. Let me switch. I've got 2 pages of people here. Let me look at everybody. Okay. Okay, that's awesome because we've got ranges from a 1 to a 5, which is pretty typical for the course. Some of you are up there at the 8, so just know that I am going to call on you at some points to see what you guys can add to us, not in a bad way. But part of the process and the work that we're going to do in this class is there may be things that you're doing in your school or your parish or whatever that really work well. Please, if you're so willing, share those with me and with the rest of the class because this is one of those situations, there's a million different ways to approach this. What I'm going to teach you are those things that have been proven through research to be effective and they have worked in a practical application. But that does not mean that there's not something else out there that's just as good or better. Okay, so that's kind of where we're coming from. So we're going to do a lot of virtual collaboration and sharing, and please feel free to share with us. The other thing to know too is as you're building certain projects and doing pieces of the course, if you've got a template or a form or something that you're required to do or you use in your school, and you'd rather do that one than the one I've provided, that is absolutely fine. Like I said, it's not that my template's the only way. There's a lot of different ways, and if you've got something that's working for you, please use it. Because at the end of the day, I want you to walk out of this class with something that you can use tomorrow or next year or a year from now, etc. Okay. The other thing I just remembered I want to remind you guys about, if there's something that I have posted in the course that you particularly like, go ahead and download it, because the minute I post final grades, you're locked out. So you can't come back in and pick stuff up later. There may be nothing you want, that's fine, that's your personal business, but if there is something you see, because I've had students come back later and go, I really want this, but I can't access it in the course. Just keep a copy as we go along. This stuff is not, it's not sacred, it's not like you can't share it. You can, just remember there are some copyright issues that, come in. For those of us that have had a copyright violation and had to pay a fine. We've learned that, because it really does happen. All right, so let's talk about, sorry, there we go. I don't know why my thing's not working like it should tonight. Let me try this again. That's better. Okay, so let's talk about the course. It focuses on collection and data analysis, how we use those in educational settings. But in addition to that, I'm going to walk you through some protocols to look at student work samples, how to use data from observations and other artifacts, as well as the traditional standardized test scores. So we're really going to be looking at this from multiple perspectives, because there are so many different kinds of data that can be very useful and beneficial in our work in schools. So, what is it that I want you to be able to do? I want you to understand and be able to have a model that allows you to really analyze data. And I want that model to be aligned with research-based instructional initiatives. So one of the things that we often see happen is, I told you, we get this just massive amount of data thrown at us. And we either put it on the shelf and let it collect dust and do nothing with it, or we try to manage all of it. That doesn't work. You have to have some sort of a system in place to make sense of the data, to pull it into usable chunks, and most importantly, to tie it to great instruction. If you miss any one of those pieces, you might as well not even collect the data. So what does research tell us? There are lots of best practices. I particularly like the data-wise process. I think it's very well researched. I had the opportunity to go to Harvard and study with the data-wise people, as well as the instructional rounds group with Dr. Elmore. So I'm very comfortable with those. My school district in Dallas, they adopted Driven by Data. I mean, every principal read it. We had entire data collaboratives. I mean, it was a huge push. And they've done very well with it. Dallas, for an urban district, they are really seeing some tremendous results. So it does work. There's also some great tools on the Department of Education website where, quite frankly, you can download all kinds of comparative data and look at it. So, oftentimes data doesn't make sense unless we have somebody else's data to compare it to. So the Department of Ed, both at the state and national level, can be really, really important. If you are an instructional coach or you aspire to be an instructional coach, the Data Coaches Guide is also excellent. I like it because it comes with a CD, as does Driven by Data and DataWise. So you can just download these great protocols and use them. And then, of course, the instructional rounds, it's a way to monitor how we're using the data to impact instruction. So I had a boss who used to say all the time, don't expect what you don't inspect. So this is kind of that model. But what I like about instructional rounds is the fact that it's not evaluative. So I'm not coming in, as your principal to do your yearly observation for your evaluation. A team of your peers may include the principal or the assistant, it may not, are coming in and they're approaching, observing your instruction much like medical residents do as part of their rounds. Very similar process, but it's applied to education. So I have 3 of those 4 books on my bookshelf, and like I said, quite frankly, I pull bits and pieces from each of them. But again, just resources you might want to have for the future, or you may want to ask your librarian to add to your professional library, your school, or your district. So where do we start? Let's kind of start with the foundational questions and pieces. So one of the things that data-wise, as well as driven by data, and some of the other researchers really push for is to have a data team. Now, for those of you that are in my PLC class, or you've maybe taken the PLC class, we spend a lot of time talking about professional learning communities and how important they are. Oftentimes, professional learning communities are created by grade level or by department or subject, etc. But in an effective school that really has synergy towards improving and that continuous improvement model, there are going to be multiple kinds of PLCs. So you may have the 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade PLCs. You may have the math PLC and the reading PLC. But I would also encourage you to have a PLC that is a data team. And we'll talk more about why this is important here in a minute. But a data team serves as sort of that guiding coalition that makes sense of our data and helps us as teachers with how we use that and apply it directly within our classroom. So data teams are another form of PLC that have been proven to be very, very effective in helping schools to look at and use data. So who sits on a data team? Well, it consists of a small group of people with complementary skills, and they have that same common purpose, which is focused on student achievement, and they have a self-imposed accountability. So, for example, when I was a principal at the elementary, middle, and high school level, we had data teams. And like I said, they created that guiding coalition that helped us to really not only embrace our data, but to put it into practical application. Far too often schools get data, they may even look at it, they may even analyze it a little bit, but it never moves from that analysis into practical, direct instruction. And when you have that missing element, like I said, the data is basically useless to you. So a data team is sort of that intermediary group that takes the data, looks at it, makes sense of it, puts it into usable chunks, gets it out to teachers, where they then look at and figure out what are the best research-based instructional practices. And then if you think in terms of a cycle, comes back through the data team to see, is that really working, along with that observation piece. So you kind of have this sort of spiral of things happening, but it all starts with this data team. Who would you put on a data team? Anybody you want to. Generally, I would have one person from each team. It usually wasn't my team leader or my department chair. But these are people who are somewhat comfortable with data and are willing to get in there and do that nitty-gritty piece. As the high school principal, one of my assistant principals, all he did was data for us. He was our data assistant principal. He did data and testing, world's worst job, right? But he was the one who led this, and he was the one that, helped each department to decide who was going to be on it, and really powerful group, and did a lot of good things for the school. So data teams support that campus data-driven decision-making process. In an effective school, there is no major decision made without data to back it up. That means teacher assignments, that means attendance, policies, it may mean discipline, but really and truly almost every single decision had some sort of data behind it. Now, of course, there are exceptions. In an emergency, we didn't wait on the data, we just handled it. But like I said, data, it can be an essential part of what's going on in schools. So data teams support the campus multiple ways. We've already kind of talked about that. So what do? The data team is going to look at your data analysis process. That's the first thing. Then they're going to make some instructional decisions. That's the second piece. Then they're going to give the goals to the campus stakeholders. So for example, my data team looked at student achievement results from our state testing. We looked at SAT and ACT data. We looked at AP data. We looked at attendance. We looked at discipline. We looked at our culture surveys and climate survey results. We even did the same thing for our PTAs. We looked at parent involvement and created, quite frankly, the data team said we needed more parent involvement. So once they did that, they pushed those instructional decisions to what was called my campus instructional leadership team, another PLC. And we began to build some additional ways parents could be involved. So they gave us a goal that we wanted to grow parent involvement by 20% a year. That was the goal. We figured out how to do it. And as we implemented, we told the data team, here's what we're doing. The data team set up ways to evaluate and track our progress, and then we shared them. Because when it works, it's pretty exciting to see those metrics continue to improve around the things you have deemed to be important. So, with that being said, how do you think a data team can, I just realized there's a misspelling in that, I'm so sorry, can support your campus? So I'm going to turn off sharing. Hang on, maybe. Sorry, my computer's being wonky. Stop that. Oh, there we go. So, okay. So you guys can see me okay? Okay. So how do you think you see a data team support your campus? Do any of you have a data team? Let's start with that. Wow. Okay, I'm surprised. I usually have at least one person that has a data team on their campus. Okay, so
we have a data person, not a team though.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have a data person?
We have
to look at my data a lot.
Okay. Do you feel like it's usable the way it's given to you?
I break it down.
Okay. Okay. So nobody has a data team. So see, you guys can already go back with a revolutionary idea for your schools.
We have data teams.
Do what?
We have data teams in our school. There's in every educator is on one of the teams. There's like the head committee where they meet to talk about what they're going to be looking up data for. And then as we branch out into groups, each team is responsible for certain types of data. Like some of them look at the behavior incidences and whatnot. So.
Okay, awesome. In an ideal situation, now keep in mind this is ideal, you have one point person who's responsible for data. And they're usually the statistics people, like my assistant principal who was in charge of data when I was a high school principal. He had a PhD in statistics, so we knew he was the guy, right? None of the rest of us wanted to do that, but he did. So he'd be the repository for all the data. And he would then take it and put it into what he thought was usable pieces. Then it went to our administrative team, which was a very diverse team. And we would look at not the data so much, but how he had put it together to share with the teachers. And we were somewhat the devil's advocate, because if we couldn't follow it and understand it, we knew the teachers would probably struggle with it too. So we would guide him and say, okay, this format works really well for this one. Can you rethink this, etc. Then he led the main data team for the campus. So once we kind of massaged the reports and what we wanted to give to teachers, what we didn't, the format that it should be used in, etc., then he took it to the data team. The data team then went through and looked at, but he provided all the data analysis, because quite frankly, I don't want my teachers to be doing data analysis. You don't have time. You have too many other important things to do. Let us do that part. Unless you just have something particular you're looking for, but we'll still help you. The data team then looked at that data, and then they set the parameters and the goals. So we always had a midterm goal and a final goal. So, by end of semester one, we're going to be this far ahead as evaluated by. And at the end, we would do the same thing. The data teams would then take that data, and let's say that Well, this is a real example. One of the things that we noticed through our instructional rounds, and it was certainly evident in our data, was that we did not know how at the high school level to teach vocabulary. Our idea of teaching vocabulary was, you know, on Monday, here students, here's your SAT vocabulary word list. You're going to do for homework tomorrow night, you're going to write and use it in a sentence, then you're going to define it, and then we're going to give you a quiz on Friday. And lo and behold, the students could not remember the vocabulary because that's not effective. So the data team would look at and identify the particular strands within the data that we needed to work on. That then went to what we called our TLC, Teacher Leader Cadre. They were my researchers. These are the teachers that you've probably dealt with. They're always wanting to read an article or read a book or, you know, whatever. Their job was to go out and research and find the best, most user-friendly instructional practice that they could to teach vocabulary. So we gave it to TLC. TLC came back and said, you know what, we really want to use Marzano's teaching academic vocabulary process, which, by the way, would have been my choice had I chosen anyway, but they chose. And it was very easy to sell to the teachers because their peers are the ones that chose it. It wasn't me. It wasn't the administrative team. So then that went from there to our departments. We gave them the data. We gave them where our greatest needs were. We gave them the goals and objectives, and we even gave them the instructional practice. Now, if they didn't want to use that recommended instructional practice, that's fine. You had to come up with something equally as good, if not better. And then it was literally a spiral. So they would begin implementation. The data team would be working on how we're going to evaluate the effectiveness of it. That's going to be then given to our instructional round teams or PLCs as well as the administrators. And we're going to be going into classrooms to look at the implementation. Not to evaluate you as a teacher, but to look at how well you're able to implement that. And lo and behold, over that cycle of the process, we saw not only an increase in our student achievement scores on state data, we did great with that. SAT went up, ACT went up, AP scores went up. We went from 0 national merit scholars within 1 year to 17 because it worked. That's why a data team is powerful, but they're not all powerful, if that makes sense. You'll notice that there were different pieces of our plan that different constituent groups owned. A lot like what Melissa's talking about. They've got data teams. The whole idea, though, is you got to have somebody who's sort of the overarching group that is guiding and analyzing that data and getting it to usable chunks. Because before we had a data team, we would give the teachers the reports, and they were completely overwhelmed by them. They didn't know what to look for. They did not know how to identify those main leverage things that are going to be, you know, what is it that's low effort but high results, you know, on that metric. I can't think what it's called right now. But, you know, we picked out the things that were low effort. If you've ever used Marzano's academic vocabulary teaching process, it's simple, super simple. No extra resources. I could teach it to you in 30 minutes. Simple. But we were going to get great results, and we did. Okay, so does that kind of make sense why a data team is working? So let's talk about the process, though, as a whole. So this is just one model. There are a million out there. But what I like about this is it's an easy graphic that is pretty understandable to everybody. So I'm going to share my screen again. And let's see here. Hang on. Trying to just make it more doable. There we go. Okay, so this is one of the models and processes that we quite frankly we created. So the first thing you have to do is frame the question. Okay, what is that? Well, for us, we saw pretty quickly from the data team. So the data team's working right here. Frame the question. What was keeping us from being, at the time Texas had a model of accountability where you could be exemplary, recognized, acceptable, or unacceptable. We were at that time recognized. We wanted to get, no, we were acceptable. We wanted to get to recognized and eventually to exemplary. So we had to, the data team is doing all this work to frame a question to find within our data what are those leverage points that are going to make a difference to move our scores across multiple metrics. Okay, that's a trick. You know, you can improve one thing and you're not paying attention to the other, and guess what happens? One thing goes up, the other drops. Our goal was to get everything to go up. They had to organize for dialogue. That meant putting the data in a format that was understandable to teachers. What data did they need to use that was part of this? They had to analyze it, because like I said, we could not hand those teachers, you know, those reams and reams and reams and reams of data. It was too much. You know, in a school with 2,800, you have 2,800 students taking English. I cannot hand my English department 2,800 state assessment results or 2,800 ACT results. Too much. So we looked for leverage points. We talked about organizing for dialogue and what were going to be those strategic questions that would help to guide them. We were going to find the right data elements. We were going to analyze it and make sense of it. The data team is going to interpret it. And again, here's what we noticed within the trends. Here's our strengths, here's our weaknesses. Now, if you really want to, as a teacher, you can go back through this cycle on your own, but I promise you nobody did. Then, here's where our instructional leadership team came in. They picked out those actions that were the best in our teacher leadership cadre. Then, our data team is again monitoring. So, what does everybody else do in this? We're doing lots of instructionally relevant questions. We're giving feedback. We're having these dialogues. We're giving feedback. You notice the circle. And at the center of it all is that student achievement that we know we're going to be able to improve. Kind of make sense? Data teams are so integral to this, but you also have to have other teams working simultaneously to help this to move forward. It cannot be on the shoulders of one set of individuals within a school. It has to be multiple. Okay, so the first step is to frame the question. So what information and questions need to be answered? So for us, it was, why are we not, you know, we're getting close. We're getting close to the metrics we want, but we're not quite hitting the mark. So what are those leverage points that are going to push the envelope for us? You know, and I've seen schools come up with 50 goals. We didn't. We had 3. That's all I let them have every year was 3. 3 is doable. 50 is not. So for us, it became vocabulary, and we'll talk more about a couple of the others later on. 3 goals, leverage points that will make a difference. So what information and questions need to be answered? It gives you focus. Okay, so gosh, we're doing great with summarization on our reading assessments, but we're not doing well with vocabulary. In our math assessments, we're doing great with measurement and geometry, but we're not doing so well with probability and statistics, which carries over, by the way, into science and social studies and everything else. So we picked the 3 key areas that we thought would make the most difference across content areas, but also on the most assessments. Because whether you're talking a state level assessment or the ACT or the SAT or the AP test or a local assessment, whatever, guess what? There's going to be probability and statistics on there. There's going to be vocabulary. So we looked for common strands. And when we really broke down that data to the objective level, guess what? Those were the lowest across measurements. But you can't just look at one data element. The data teams put all of our results side by side and found the common trends across all of them. Not very many schools handle data that way. If yours does, please tell me how you're doing it, because I would be so excited. So, what are your guiding questions? So when you frame the question, first of all, really simple, what do we want to know? Okay? So, how did the students perform on blah, blah, blah? What are you attempting to measure? Very simple questions to answer. And then you can see from here how you take that from creating questions, and then they're breaking it down. So we started big. So for us, what do we want to know? What are our challenges on the multiple assessments? What specific objectives, content areas need the most focus? Well, for us, I told you, vocabulary, probability, and statistics. What areas need improvement? Is this an instructional problem or is it a curricular problem? Because sometimes it's curricular. One of the things that was so cool, that was once we identified these areas, and I remember vividly, I'm sitting with the science PLC, and we're talking about, look, this is where we're low, this is what we got to do. And my department chair said, Tracy, the problem's not with the teaching, it's the curriculum. He said that our curriculum as a district that we were mandated to use did not cover probability and statistics. There was like nothing in there. That's a huge part of any good science curriculum, right? If you're testing a hypothesis, you've got to know about probability. Then you've got to be able to look at statistically how all of the results come together. He said, if you will trust us, let us throw out the curriculum that we're using, and we'll pull the good stuff, but we'll fill in the gaps. Now, it's very scary as a principal when your department chair is advocating basically, the overthrow and the mutiny of using the district's curriculum. But I went out on that limb, and I let them do it. And lo and behold, the next year they had the highest science scores in the entire district. Because my teachers knew what was needed. Because they were able to make an instructional decision that mattered. Okay? So, what are those resources? Again, this is just how you do it. So you'll notice this goes from very general to very specific. Not a terribly cumbersome process. A few bullet points that you got to answer. But this, for many data teams, provides that starting point. So a nice protocol that if you like it, you can use it. If you don't like it and you have something better, all I ask is you share it with us. So what are some of those resources that we find helpful? If you're one of those people that's like, wow, I really want to try something else, you're welcome to look at other things. So like, for example, the Power of Protocols is pretty cool. The Data Coaching Guide is really awesome too, and lots of different books. But we used this simple process because, again, one of the things that I read in some of your discussion postings was the amount of paperwork we asked teachers to do. We made this protocol because it was 2 pages and you could not expand it. So if you came back to me with a 4-page document, I'm like, nope, too much, because we wanted to keep it fairly simple. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not effective. The more complicated we make things sometimes, the more difficult it is to put into practice. Yeah, thanks, Amy. I'm reading what you wrote here on the side. Yeah, excellent. Okay. All right, so that's that. So let me stop sharing if I can figure out how to do that. Hang on. Where did you guys go? There you are. Let me move you back over here. Oh, stop sharing. There it is. Okay, sorry. Sometimes it appears on different places on the screen. Okay, so that was your whirlwind tour of the first process we're going to talk about. What questions do you guys have about that or anything? Or anything in life? It's late. I'm open. I think I'm the only living soul left at the university. As I'm looking out my window, I literally don't see another soul. Okay, no questions? Y'all make this way too easy.
Tracy, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just making sure that we don't have a written assignment for this week because it just looks like reading in Moodle.
Yeah, the only thing that you've got, let me see if I can pull you guys up real quick here. Hang on one second. Okay, computer, there we go. And I'll share my screen again here in just a minute. Let me get to the right place. Okay, so hopefully you can see Moodle now. So yeah, notice that in Module 1, and they're all going to be structured this way, guys. You've got the introduction. You've got your welcome and your overview, which is the big picture of read this, watch this, do this kind of thing. Then, I'm sorry, I should be not in right here. So then you'll see an assignments bar, okay? Those assignments are what you have to do for the week. So the only thing you have this week that is an actual grade and due is a discussion forum posting. Now, I do give you some weekly readings. I'm not grading you on those. You're not giving me a summary or an essay or anything about that. But because there's a ton of reading in this course, I go ahead and sort of space it out so that I start you reading the first week and watching videos. You may not use what you're reading till week 3. Or you may not need it till we do a case study. But I don't want to just dump it all on you at one time, so I try to pace it out. So, like I said, just do the discussion forum. And then your weekly readings this week are, there's a little video, there's a couple of things that you just click on to read, so like if I clicked on that one, there's an article from Ed Leadership about becoming data wise and talks about, again, another process which looks very similar to what we did, but a little bit different. Okay. So that's the only thing. Now, I did go ahead and open up week 2. So let's just move on to it and look real quickly. Again, you've got the overview. Here's your readings and videos. You have a Zoom, but you also have your assignment next week is a reflective response, which is basically an essay. Okay? So here's your assignment. And mine looks different. You will have a submit button where I have view all submissions. But then if we move on, I'll unhide it for just a second, but I still need to do some work on it, so I'm going to hide it right back. But you guys, can y'all see? It's kind of grayed out. I think you can see it because it's my screen. So in week 3, you're going to have a discussion forum. I don't do a group assignment. I used to, but I just need to fix it. You'll have an individual. That's your first case study. So next week, you're going to have a forum and a case study. And if we move on and look at week 4, you're going to have a reflective response and your midterm. Then if you look at week 5, you're going to have a forum. That's all, because I'm being nice to you. Week 6, you have another forum and a reflective question. Week 7 is your final, and somewhere along in there, I have another case study I still need to add in. Okay? Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Ooh, somebody's going to the Ron Clark Academy. I'm jealous. I want to go with you. That would be so cool. Okay, let me stop sharing so I can see y'all again. Any other questions? Like I said, y'all are making it easy. Okay, well then, if we don't have any other questions, like I said, if something comes up, put it in the instructor virtual office, email me, whatever. If it's something that I think will help everybody, I will put it up for, as an announcement. Jennifer, I don't know if who's with you, but she is precious. How cute. So without further ado then, you guys have a great evening. If you're in New Orleans and the South Louisiana area, if you don't get your assignments in, don't worry about it. We're saying lots of prayers for you and hoping everything, is minimized. It's not as bad as it is, I'm afraid it could be. Like I said, we wish you the best, and of course I'll work with you. Oh, Marion, that's awesome. She found DataWise for $3.98 at Thrift Books Online. 2 cents cheaper than my $4. Oh, wow. And so we've got Anna, Stephanie. I'm seeing people post. They're down in New Orleans. Yeah, guys, like I said, we're thinking about you. One last thing, too, real quick. Somebody says their exam, a test, or a project. I don't give tests. This is more about applying what you learn and walking away with something that you can actually use as a principal or a team leader or a teacher. So it's really about mastery of learning, not about you regurgitating information back to me. Okay? So no exams. Everything's pretty much project. And like I said, yeah, definitely thinking about you guys. Yeah, definitely thinking about you guys down south. And sure, come on. I'll share my 1982 office with you guys for as long as you need.
Another quick question for you, Miss Tracy.
Yeah.
I know you said that they're project-based, and I've had Dr. Victor, I believe, and he timed everything. Do you have anything that's like really time-sensitive? Okay, good.
Now, like I said, my philosophy is this is graduate school, and I understand what it's like to be a teacher or a leader in a school. I've been there. I know that cycle of craziness, and then it'll kind of even out, and then it's crazy again. And you guys are fixing to open school. I know what goes into that. So, yeah, my timelines are very flexible. And as far as the readings and stuff, even though I put a due date, obviously I'm not going to monitor whether you read it or not. I just do that so you can stay on top of the course and not get overwhelmed at the end with way too much to do. That's the reason. Okay? Like I said, you're grown adults. Trust but verify kind of thing. And also too, because I do case studies and stuff, it's pretty hard to plagiarize, and it's pretty hard to copy from each other because it is so individualized. Okay. Oh, wow, 2 hours to complete it? No. If you open like the week 2 assignment now, I don't care if you don't turn it in till whatever day, the 21st. That gives you way more than 2 hours. Because like I said, I want you to really think deeply. I want you to reflect. I want you to really dig deeply into this. Yeah, and somebody said the PowerPoint, it actually should be found in the announcements. Let me look and see. I think it's in News Forum. I hope it posted. If you click on the Zoom meeting link, yeah, it's there. And then I'll put it up. It's also in the actual module too. I added it. Hang on, let me just go back real quick. Make sure I'm right. So yeah, if you click on, whoops, sorry, my computer's jumping around. There we go. If you click on the Zoom meeting link, you will see the PowerPoint there as well. And I also gave you the template for framing the question. Okay. All right, guys. Well, it is 7:58. I don't want to keep you a minute past. So you guys have a great week, and prayers to all of you guys down in South Louisiana. Keep us posted on how you're doing, okay? Because we worry about you. All right. Y'all have a good night.